Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Over the weekend, Americans gathered around the country in churches and synagogues to pray for the 11 innocent people who were murdered in Pittsburgh on Saturday. They bowed their heads. They asked God for healing. They thought hard about how to bring the country together, how to improve themselves, how to be kinder to the people around them. That's the America that you grew up in, a decent place full of decent people trying to do the right thing. But there's another America, too. It's the America of cable news and social media, of CNN and Twitter. In that America, political operatives rush to the scene of human tragedy, hoping to leverage it for political gain. They make snap judgments on the basis of incomplete evidence in order to implicate their political opponents in crimes they did not commit. They use fear and rage to accomplish what reasoned argument could never accomplish. They commit moral blackmail. Typically, their aim is gun control. A crazy person committed an evil act, therefore you must be disarmed. But this time, that's not their goal. This time, their goal is more comprehensive than that. They want to take charge of what you are allowed to say and think. How are they trying to do that? By blaming you and your opinions for the crime. Watch.
This man the flames of his hatred were fanned by a president who kept talking about this caravan of refugees as if they were terrorists or as if they were coming to commit atrocious crimes in our country, which they're not.
So did you catch the message there? It wasn't subtle. The murderer was angry about illegal immigration. If you oppose illegal immigration, you are very much like the murderer. Even if you've never killed anyone, your views have inspired others to kill. You are implicated in this atrocity. You are a monster, just like the lunatic in Pittsburgh. You must change your beliefs, otherwise you will be punished. This is how free speech dies, and free thought along with it. The range of acceptable opinion narrows until it mimics a CNN script. Before long, everyone is nodding piously along in unison. There is no disagreement. There is only conformity, obedient serfs chirping the party line. That's the goal. After a century of defending free speech, the left is now its enemy. Just last week, the Southern Poverty Law Center issued a list of demands for tech companies. Anyone who disagrees with the SPLC, they explained, must be prevented from operating a website or raising money online or organizing events or publicly expressing their opinions. That's an order, says the SPLC. Well, it goes without saying that the Southern Poverty Law Center has no moral standing to make any of those demands. None of the people making demands do. And yet, as always, the least virtuous are invariably the most self-righteous. Watch former DNC chairman Howard Dean explain that American politics is no longer really about politics, which is to say about competing ideas of what might work and what doesn't work. Instead, politics is a spiritual battle between light and dark, between God and Satan himself. Watch.
Has now become a struggle about good versus evil, and the President of the United States is evil.
Evil. Now, that is not the language of American civic life. It never has been. That is the language of holy war. Evil. Well, evil people can't be reasoned with. They shouldn't be listened to. They must be crushed and destroyed. Did Howard Dean really mean that? Well, we're going to assume, for the sake of this country, that he did not mean that, and none of the other people talking like Howard Dean right now mean it either. We're hoping all of them have lost their senses temporarily, and at some point they're going to wake up feeling chastened and ashamed and ready to rejoin the adult conversation in progress. That's our hope. Either way, we do not plan to stop talking, no matter what they say, no matter what they demand. Every American has an absolute right to express his views, regardless of what Twitter thinks. It's our birthright. It's the most important freedom we have. We're not giving it up on this show. On our set, you are always free to say what you believe, even if we disagree with you. Free expression does not cause extremism. It solves extremism. Victor Davis Hanson is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, and he joins us tonight. Professor Hanson, I wanted to talk to you first tonight because I think you have perspective that is lacking in this conversation. Are we overstating it? Do you think that speech is at stake in our current debate?
No, I think it is in a way. I think all of us, though, want a safe space, if I could use that left-wing term, where we don't want to turn on the television for NBA, NFL, or Grammys, or Tonys, or White House course and be lectured at. And we don't want to spend Thanksgiving as if it's 1861. So we want we want it to tone down, but we don't know what the rules are, Tucker, because we sort of established that James Hodgkinson, to take one example, did not shoot Steve Scalise because of what Biden and Maxine Waters or Madonna said on Inauguration Day. He was just nuts, and that might have, he had other, criteria, but it wasn't just what the opponents of Donald Trump or the conservatives said. Okay, we accept that. And then all of a sudden, with these latest two incidents with the pipe bomber, Mr. Sayak, and with the synagogue shootings, we're told that it's somehow Donald Trump, but it's not. We don't know anything about the cause and effect. We don't know whether he was too pro-Israel and therefore he brought people out of the woodwork that are angry with him, or that he was too anti-Israel and he empowered the alt-right. They can't even get it straight. So we don't get, the American people think, well, wait a minute, I don't like hate speech or tough speech, but I don't know what the rules are. They're not. It's not symmetrical. It looks like it's a left-wing electronic, reign of terror. These self-appointed Facebook Robespierre in a nanosecond can guillotine you, and people don't like that. So we're saying, what are the rules of speech? And from what you and I and others have seen of Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, the masters of the universe in Silicon lack either the intellect or the morality to tell us what is permissible speech. So we don't know who to turn to, this confusion. So maybe we just go back to the Sermon on the Mount and say to ourselves, let's treat people the way we would like to treat them. I would tell that to Hillary Clinton. Maybe when Mitt Romney lost in 2012, he didn't say, I'm not going to be civil until the next election. Or when George Bush quite graciously accepted that he was out of office in 2009, he didn't go around the country, as Obama is now, calling the President of the United States an inveterate liar. So I think it's asymmetrical, and people understand that until the adjudicators know. They can't adjudicate us because they don't have the moral high ground.
Well, they definitely don't have the moral authority to decide who speaks. But I wonder if their assumption is right. So what they're saying is that certain ideas are so bad that they cause violence. Yeah. And I wonder if it's even possible for any society to ever squelch ideas. Doesn't that cause, and I'm not just saying this is a left-right phenomenon, it's just a human phenomenon, when you try and prevent people from having unapproved thoughts, don't you create extremism?
Yeah, I think that's an age-old dilemma that goes back to the Greeks, and we in the West have decided that we don't want the medicine to be worse than the disease, of censorship and setting up a censor board that tells us who can say what. So we err on the side of free speech, and it's especially pertinent when the people who are wanting to censor free speech right now don't want to do it symmetrically. They feel that because they're more noble, or that Donald Trump is some type of ogre, that they have deserved, because of their noble ends, any means necessary to further their moral project. And I think that's got people very, very angry and sort of alienated.
Well, I mean, anytime you have what is in effect a religious conversation, a theological conversation that begins with, I'm a good person and you're not, how can you hope to make progress? How can you solve anything if one side believes itself to be saved and the other damned?
Yeah, you can't, and you have to be empirical. So you have to say this particular act in this particular person's mind occurred because he heard this particular person say something, or a climate. Nobody's been able to make that cause and effect, and in the absence of that, as I said, in a nanosecond, all these half-educated people get on at some of the clips you pay, and then they say, I accuse you of all this. And everybody's afraid. I mean, you and I are one, and you especially are 1 nanosecond away, one slipped word from being your head electronically chopped off. Yep. And that's what we don't want.
Every day I think that, but I think it's important, more important than it's ever been, to tell the truth and be honest. Thank you, Professor. It's great to see you.
Well, you have to speak up against it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's important.
Thank you.